I Procedamus. I remember the day after my ordination, the morning of my first Mass, vesting in the sacristy, putting on the amice, putting on the alb, the cincture, the maniple, the stole, the vestments. I remember the 10 years that I had been preparing for this moment. Aside from the emotions and the nerves, I was aware of what offering the holy sacrifice of the Mass means for myself and for all the faithful. But additionally, given the context of the current persecution of the traditional Catholic faith in the world and in the Church. I grabbed my chalice, I grabbed my beretta, looked at the crucifix, bowed, and said, Procedamus in pacem, to which the altar servers replied, In nomine Christi, Amen. I put on my beretta, and we processed out to the altar to offer the holy sacrifice of the Mass, the traditional Latin Mass, the Mass of the ages. Ascending the steps of the altar, I felt only gratitude to our Lord for having allowed me to be an instrument in preserving that which is true, good, and beautiful for future generations, for the ages to come. As long as I'm physically able, this Mass will continue to be offered. This spirit of determination, this spirit of perseverance, is that to which I would love to invite all of you to share. The first annual Procedamus Gala is organized to support the mission of the Oblates of St. Augustine and the old Roman Catholic See of Caer-Glow to preserve the traditional Latin Mass and the traditional Catholic faith for future generations. Procedamus.
Good evening, Father. How are you?
Doing well, Alberto. How are you?
Doing great. I was looking for my phone here in my desk so that I can go and retweet that we're live, but I cannot find my phone. Who knows where I left my phone? So let me go in here and retweet that we are live. We have a couple of topics to get to while everybody logs on. We are live on Twitter, on X, and we are live on YouTube on Restless Heart Media. So yeah, anyway, very happy to be here. We're getting excited for the Procedamus Gala. I'll talk about that in a few minutes once we get a few more of our crowd logged in. But yes, how are you, Father? How's Florida?
Getting nicer weather. We had a cold front last week, which reminded me of nice Midwestern weather, but now we're back to summer. So
nice. And last what was this? Was this on? Yeah, I think this was on Tuesday. I accidentally spilled some water on my desk. So, okay, great. I just retweeted. We also quote tweet. So, as you know, Father, I had my water went into my docking station, and so then that pretty much messed with my monitor's fine, but the docking station got messed up. So I'm on my laptop here. That's why I'm looking down. Posting live now. Anyway, okay, I'm done with that. Buck Hall will be joining us for the Procedamus Gala as the Master of Ceremonies. Father Calvin Robinson will be joining us as the keynote speaker. You need to be there. And one thing that and this is my personal observation, Father, is that there are, I'm not going to say a lot, pretty much none of the personalities on the Catholic grifter personalities are supporting Procedamus. They support their own. They're going to be supporting their own subscriptions, their own. By the way, I saw that 10 Books apparently now has a subscription model where it has different levels. We can actually sign up for the 10 subscription and then get access to, as far as I understand, one of the levels is getting access to the entire catalog of 10 books on many, many writings of the saints, biographies of the saints. Father, these are all books that a lot of us have on our bookshelves, but then when we get to meet other trats and interact with other trats, we realize that nobody is reading. We are all listening to our latest grifter subscription service on YouTube, but none of us are reading the lives of the saints. We're not reading the writings of the saints. We're not reading Introduction to the Devout Life. So I saw this and I thought, this by 10. And I thought, wow, finally, one actually useful subscription service where you are not just subscribing to people that were not able to make money on YouTube that are making their own subscription service, but you're actually getting access to so many lives of the saints. And that is what we need. When we read the lives of the saints, when we read the writings of the saints, they have a lot of stuff on St. Alphonsus. Just wonderful. So anyway, I just thought about that subscription service, because as those who are listening, if you're listening on Twitter, you need to go over to Restless Heart Media on YouTube. This channel, Father, is about the spiritual life. This channel is about the spiritual life, not about what recent events, which we are about to get into a couple of recent events. But this channel is about the spiritual life because, as I forget it's Dom Chotard, I believe, the author of the Soul of the Apostolate.
Mm-hmm.
And as we read on Tuesday from John Senior, the solution to the crisis, Father, is the restoration of the convents and monasteries. And we are not going to be able to raise in our homes little nuns and little monks and friars if we do not have an interior life ourselves. So getting the grifter subscription is not going to help you build your interior life. Restless Heart Media, just available on YouTube, available for free, is going to help us do that so that we can actually restore the church. YouTube subscribers are not going to, increasing the number of YouTube subscribers is not going to solve the crisis in the church. The restoration of the convents and the monasteries here, Our Lady of Consolation's Monastery, Father Martin, the Oblates of St. Augustine, are actually doing something to aid in the crisis in the church.
And anyway, there's so many people out there that provide commentary, provide news, commentary and news. Commentary is, their own opinions about the news, opinion pieces. That, of course, highlight certain things going on in Rome and everywhere else and other dioceses. But all it really comes off is just complaining. There's no real solution, no one proposing a solution. And yeah, as you were saying before, they do, in a sense, tend to act just somewhat as gatekeepers. You can only follow the bishop that I personally want to follow. I'll only promote this one guy. And so, yeah, here's people actually doing good work, providing the sacraments, providing the faith. It's like, this is the way you actually solve a problem. You fill the gaping holes with what's supposed to be there. But yeah, so today, this podcast isn't particularly to talk about the news and the crisis, all that kind of stuff. We have topics to talk about. In case the chat is, there's not a whole lot of people in chat. There's 70 plus people watching right now. But we want to talk about what you guys want to talk about. You guys bring up the subjects. You guys ask us questions. You guys ask us, what we think about certain things, whether it be, the spiritual life, family life, monastic life, vocational discernment, or the news, So, or whatever sarcastic comments you want that, make this fun and in a good time. So,
Father, did you see the whole, and really everybody's commenting on this, even I saw even Michael Matt going in, the whole Pearl and Lila Rose situation. But I have not even gone in and listened to really the full of anything. It's just like, why would I go in and listen to like two women speaking? Unbearable. But I've heard, Father, that apparently it all came to it all came to a head basically because the discussion went on about the role of women and females just yapping online. Apparently, Pearl was telling Lila, like, nobody, like what is this? Like this whole telling men how to live on the internet. Women are not going to be effective that way. But then I thought of wives who do this to their husbands.
It's true. Yeah, so it was. I did see that small little clip, and it was pretty interesting because Lila didn't really get defensive talking to Pearl about really, the porn crisis, the porn industry, in today, and maybe how it affects marriages, how it affects relationship between young men and young women, all that kind of stuff. She really got defensive whenever Pearl started asking her about whether there was hierarchy in nature, because Lila brought up the natural law, and so Pearl asked her about the hierarchy in nature, and Lila had to admit that there is a hierarchy in nature. And so then Pearl asked, okay, what about, men and women? Is there a hierarchy there? And Lila tried to escape that and shoot over to like, oh, but the Imago Dei, every man was made in the image, likeness of God. And so we all have equal dignity, all that kind of stuff. And that's when everything kind of blew up. And so Lila was kind of refusing to admit that, this is scriptural. St. Paul says it, that wives should be submissive to their husbands. And of course, in return, husbands should love their spouse, their wife, as Christ loves the church. It's mutual. Both have a responsibility to outdo the other one in generosity. That's pretty clear. It's a both and. It's not a either or. But that's where Pearl got her, and so she was Pro was telling her basically, like, you lecturing men. First of all, like as you were saying, Alberto, it's not going to work. Like, women can't lecture men and then men just say, oh yeah, you're right, I'll just change my behavior. On the contrary, men kind of actually get hardened towards any sort of formal correction done by lecturing women or nagging women. And as you were saying, when that happens in marriages, oftentimes this is how a woman distances her husband from her, not intentionally. I mean, she'll nag, why aren't you working longer hours? Why aren't you making more money? Why isn't this done? Why is the cabinet still broken and need to be replaced? Why is the door not been fixed yet? These sorts of things, and it just creates an environment that is not welcoming to come home to. And so the husband will oftentimes spend time at the bar before coming home because he's just not ready to come home to that sort of environment. And then of course she'll begin complaining about that. So yeah.
Yeah, it can get pretty bad as far as the husbands wanting to. Now I would say, Father, that there's a difference between a husband saying, hey, I'm going with my friends and male friends, obviously, and then having a good time and whatever, and then but I know of a case where a husband, in order to spend time away from home, is basically spending time with a way older woman. Really, really, and it is true though that when husbands get in a very desperate situation, they do weird stuff that we go ahead and look at, like, why are you doing that? But then consider that I can only imagine how it must be like living with someone that is just completely unbearable, because women can get to that point. Really, women can get to that point. But yeah, as Diane is saying, all I heard was that Pearl muted Lila. Yes. Yes, that now a lot of people go ahead and criticize Pearl because she's a woman, and then she talks about stuff like this. Some people go like, well, you're a woman, why are you talking about that? I suppose that those may be valid points. Leave your comments and questions in the chat. Any questions that you may have about anything we've talked about in the last couple of weeks, Father. We've talked about what recommendations maybe regarding raising little, and how life is with little children. Recommendations when it comes to or even like, why are we not on the rundown anymore? People have been asking that, and people have asked that in the chat. Don't feel like talking about that again tonight, but I'm just talking about any types of questions that you all may have. We can put them out in the comment box and we can get to them. And then, though, another weird thing that happened, Father, was that apparently the Jesuits run the Dominicans. The Novus Ordo Dominican, the Novus Ordo Jesuits run the Dominicans because Father Totalben was ordered to leave his Twitter account, specifically after he had made and now they said that, oh, it's because he had tagged Father James Martin. The tweets from Father Totalben that I had seen regarding Father James Martin, the tweets that I had seen was Totalben saying, oh, Father James Martin has done nothing to merit any sort of disciplinary action. I was like, okay. So
yeah. So basically, I mean, I kind of briefly read the tweet, and Father Totleben, I mean, he's a Dominican from the Eastern Province, basically explained that Father James Martin is just, rubbing elbows with all the rich people in New York. That's what he's there to do. And he's the chaplain, the personal chaplain for the beautiful people is how he called it. So the alphabet people. And apparently someone reported him to his superiors, and the superiors said, hey, get off the internet. And so there was another Dominican from the Western Province that was praising him for his obedience, whatever else. But it's like, you're being obedient to the enemy. You're being obedient to the enemy. You're calling out a wolf in sheep's clothing as a wolf in sheep's clothing. And your superior tells you, don't call out the wolf in sheep's clothing. And supposedly this is some sort of heroic act of obedience to obey a shepherd that is telling you not to call out the wolf in sheep's clothing. So of course this the other Dominican calls me a fake monk and all that kind of stuff. And so I politely reminded him that there's a woman, a bearded woman out in a diocese in Kentucky who calls herself brother as a hermit out there, licit. And of course, Cardinal Burke made a man who had the trans surgery or whatever else, erected a community, made him a Mother Superior. And then, of course, at one of Cardinal Burke's canon law conferences, there was a priest who was talking about the scenarios of what happens whenever we discover that a woman who transitioned to a man has been ordained a priest. Obviously, that can't be valid. And then he specifically says, I'm not asking if this has happened. I'm saying that it's happened. So we have trans brothers, we have trans sisters, and we have trans priests. And so I told this guy, and you're calling me a fake monk. You're saying I have no ministry in the church. Like throwing stones in glass houses. I mean, come on.
That's what it's kind of the scary thing, is that these guys are in communion with this entire machine that is doing this. And now people may say, well, it was just an honest mistake. But when we see it systematically, it's a problem. And actually also it's a problem if in a Novus Ordo seminary a woman can pass on as a man. that's a problem. Let's say, Diane, to be honest, even as a woman, it is hard to find women friends who aren't a bit crazy.
This is true.
Yes, I completely agree with this. And this is the interesting thing. So for men, Father, a lot of times people will have jobs that you just sort of have to be around people that are crazy, that are worldlings, and so on and so forth. I get a feeling that men are not, even though, yes, of course, men can also very easily be influenced, but I do get the feeling that it's very, very dangerous when your wife is friends with a feminist, because those complaining creeps in, and then you have wives that, it's horrible, wives that complain about their husband to their friends systematically, and then also complain about their husband to the children.
Right.
Very, very evil. This is very, very evil.
You destroy your husband's reputation to your children.
Rob, the video is showing in portrait mode and it is cutting off the text. Is that intended? This is a really good question, Rob, because for us, this is new. Like, it's showing in portrait mode is new. And last was it Friday or maybe on Tuesday? I forget. It's a blur. Life's a blur for me right now. I was noticing this, and then when I went, like, usually I check the chat a lot on my phone, which I don't know where it is right now, but I would check the chat on my phone, and when I would go into the YouTube app on my phone, it was showing it to me on portrait mode. But then other people were saying, no, to me it looks exactly the same.
So there's two actual links.
It's tricky.
There's both. There's technically both. It depends on which link you clicked. And so there is both a portrait mode and then there's a normal mode. I have links for both of them. Regarding the text, I mean, the background text on the portrait mode, it's going to be cut off. So you'll probably just see just the middle of Restless Heart Media at the top. But you should be seeing at least the text from the chat that we put up on the screen. So
yes, in the portrait mode, you should still be able to view the chat, and you should still be able to participate in the chat. I suppose you have to, as Father mentioned, you have to figure out how to change over to the landscape mode, which is, even on portrait, when participating in the chat is better on the app.
And then I don't know if you're watching, or I guess you're watching from YouTube. It shows me here, but I don't know what it's like on Twitter.
Yeah, that's absolutely, Diane. YouTube looks fine to me. I couldn't figure it out. So hopefully it's not a problem. It looks nice on vertical mode, but it's kind of annoying that it cuts off the chat.
Bouncing back to the previous subject. Bouncing back to the previous subject, I was kind of curious because of the whole Lila and Pearl thing. Divorce rates, because I think the number one thing that really is, I guess, inhibiting young men of actually pursuing marriage is no-fault divorce. It's the fact that they literally put everything on the line for a woman to go crazy and to they have 5 kids together, and then she just takes off, and now he can only see his 5 kids every other weekend. There's a lot to lose for the man that the woman doesn't have to lose. She may even gain in the process. So I was looking up some studies, and I found a study called "Who Wants the Breakup: Gender and Breakup in Heterosexual Couples" by Michael J. Rosenfeld from Stanford University. And this one found some interesting things. First of all, that women initiate around 66 to 75% of divorces. That women initiate approximately 66 to 75% of divorces. And the key finding of the study was that women initiated around 69% of divorces versus 31% by men. For college-educated women, this rises to approximately 90%. 90%. So to me, that's pretty crazy, because you do have a lot of these college-educated women wanting to know why men are pursuing them. Oftentimes, you'll find that these women. Actually, I saw another tweet that was basically saying that, women don't want to actually fulfill the role of a wife. They don't want to be a homemaker. They don't want to raise and nurture children. They don't even want to have a lot of children. They just basically want the emotional stability of having a man, having a friend, but not actually participating in this new life, this marriage, this new mission, So the marriage ultimately has to be the first and foremost most important thing in one's life, and the career, the job is to support the family. But a lot of people have the reverse idea, whereas just a marriage or relationship is just to support one's personal fulfillment, so they can fulfill themselves completely in their career.
Rob, thank you for. So Rob he did something that I could not do in our last stream. You figured it out. Wonderful. So happy to hear that. Great. So if anybody missed this on YouTube, there's apparently a vertical link and a horizontal link. The horizontal link is going to be much better. It really is much better. If you want to participate in the chat, which is what we want everybody to do, remember to put your questions, put any comments about any topics in the chat, and we will get to them. Who is Pearl? Pearl is a female podcaster. I don't know what else is her claim to fame. That's sort of her thing.
Her thing, actually, I mean, a little bit about her background, because I've been trying to figure it out too, psychologically, like, where is she coming from? Why does she have the perspective that she has? And the best I could come up with, and of course this isn't, I have not researched this or tried to find, test its veracity, try to find any more, but it really does seem like she came up in a family where she really loved her father, but then her mother really disappointed her in some way. Maybe she cheated on her dad or something, but she very much stands behind, the men in most of these cases, and really kind of denigrates women just constantly. And so that's what kind of makes me think that maybe there was a woman in her life that she really looked up to, that completely and totally disappointed what she thought a woman's role would be. And so now she thinks that, yeah, women are failures, and so men have every right to look after themselves.
Rob says, it's not just young women. A friend's mom divorced her husband of 45 years and got an annulment and remarried another man in the church.
Oh my goodness. Well, no, it's true. I mean, especially midlife crisis and everything else too. It's, yeah, they take a lot of liberties, and of course, yeah. I mean, there's a new idea of like psychological problems and all that kind of stuff that you can appeal to in the annulment process, and yeah, they hand them out like candy. So it's hard to take that kind of stuff seriously. It's hard, especially in cases like that. It's hard to take marriage and the church's stance on marriage seriously, going into it. Meanwhile, they require you to do so, but they're the ones that are destroying its credibility. If that makes sense.
I just texted I texted Mrs. Flatcath, and I asked her if she had heard about the Pearl and Lila thing in any of her friends' group chats, and she said no. So I said, look it up. I really wonder what she would think about it. Amy, hello, hi Father, hi Alberto. How are you both this evening? How are you, Father?
Pretty good. Public service announcement. Remember, December 8th is the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, Holy Day of Obligation, at least for trads. I don't know what the Novus Ordo does anymore. So put in your ask off for work or whatever you need to do, so that you can keep holy this Holy Day of Obligation.
Absolutely, and I'm doing just fine, doing great. I served Mass the last couple of days. It was wonderful. Not today though. Let's see. This was way beyond middle. They are Yes, this is the same thing that I thought when you said midlife crisis. I said no. I was doing the math. I was like, okay, so they got married in their 20s and they've been married 45 years. Rob, did they? I bet the children were grown. So I wonder how they took it. Usually, from what I've seen, the children sort of turn against the party that is initiating the insanity and then remarrying and whatever. The sad thing, though, Father, as you mentioned, they hand out the annulments like nothing. It is very sad to think that when it comes to the family, no, the Novus Ordo Church does not care about the family whatsoever. They're granting these annulments, and then they even allow men and women who are divorced and remarried to be like Eucharistic ministers and so on and so forth. They allow all sorts of exceptions for people that have destroyed families, and they don't really see a problem with that. This is why I've been saying that the Novus Ordo Church is an enemy of civilization. We cannot. We really we need to start seeing them in a similar way that we see other Abrahamic. So we don't get in trouble here with YouTube, as we see other Abrahamic groups, not as friends or as maybe maybe this new bishop will be conservative or something like that. No, they are enemies of civilization.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, Amy. Father, I listen to Father Abernathy on his studies on the Virgentinos online every day. Would this also count as spiritual reading?
I mean, it's certainly a spiritual conference or a spiritual meditation, that sort of thing. It's definitely spiritual and definitely conducive. I don't know. Spiritual reading, you might have more time to just sit and soak something in, because spiritual reading, you're not supposed to read just to hurry up and get to the end of the book as soon as possible. You're supposed to really soak things in, consider it, find some sort of food for the following day's meditation. Mental prayer in the morning. That sort of thing. So, I mean, definitely, keep doing it. Don't stop doing it if you like it and you're edified by it. But I mean, spiritual reading, it just seems like something else.
Rob, regarding the question of what the children reacted like, the children were devastated. One of them is a TLM family and tried their best to help them. Yeah, horrible. And glad to see other women in the chat. I do enjoy these podcasts. Yes, there are some good women. There are some good women out there, but it is true that they are very few. It is true that they are very few. If from the point of view of a husband, if you see that maybe you're not home a lot when you maybe they're visiting each other, the wives or whatever, but if you overhear that one of the wives is speaking badly about their husband, that's immediately going to be a red flag, and it immediately should be a red flag for your wife as well, as to just keep your distance a little bit. Don't take anything that they say with a little bit of a grain of salt, because it is rampant. And not only this is the sad thing, Father, it's not only in the Novus Ordo or with Protestants or whatever, even in the traditionalist movement, it's rampant. Feminism in a skirt.
Yeah, true. And even in traditional Latin masses too. Yeah, I've heard several stories about just shocking things that are again just very worldly. I mean, of course, it's easy just to put on the facade that you're going to traditional Latin mass, that you're a traditional Catholic, and some people are just going through the motions. So yeah, it happens everywhere, unfortunately.
Amy says, I love the Desert Fathers. Yes, indeed, very edifying. Mark Becker is back. Good evening, good Catholic people. I like this. I like this greeting. This is a wonderful greeting. I like the greeting, because what we see out there, we see just people promoting themselves, basically, not promoting the faith. They're writing books about, you have even like now, Father, like conflicting books on masculinity. That was one that I said that I messaged you about earlier today, and I said there was a book about how to be a father or something like that. Now, here's a problem, Father. Maybe these books are needed in a way, because a lot of people growing up, maybe they did not have fathers, and so they feel like they need to read a book to find out how to be a father. So I suppose I can understand that, but also being a father, and then right now of young children, it just seems like the most important thing is just being present, which in and of itself can be a challenge for some people, but just being present. Which, by the way, yesterday, not yet. She's still 5. She's not 6 yet. My 5-year-old beat me really embarrassingly in chess. It was pretty funny. I was pretty happy though, because we play about once a day, and she takes lessons with a guy that was like Latin American champion or something. He's apparently really good. He's a young guy. Whatever. So I beat her the other day, and my daughter cried. She was like, "Oh, I lost, blah blah." And I just said, "Well, if you want to be better, if you want to beat me, then practice." Like I'm not going to, because in chess, at least for me, because I'm very in a very very beginner level, it's difficult for me to play chess to lose, because you can't checkmate yourself. So it's difficult for me to be like, okay, I'm going to let my little child win, because it's against the rules to put yourself in checkmate.
Right.
So you can't do that. You can't do that. And I like playing on the tablet, because it keeps like the children for doing things they're not supposed to, versus, or you have like you can't have the 3-year-old come out and just knock the chessboard.
That's true.
So anyway, so we play digitally, and she beat me, so I was pretty happy. Diana Liz says, "Knowing the Love of God is a very good reading. Got it based on your series." Yes, absolutely. Rob says, "My wife asks, when I pray home alone, it's quiet, but I get distracted by other thoughts. I try to get back to prayer, but keep getting distracted. What can I do to help?" Father, what do you think?
So 2 things. St. Teresa of Avila recommends just always using a book to get your thoughts back on track. You find yourself distracted, and you just read again a little bit from a book that's, maybe might be divine intimacy or something along those lines, or even just scripture, just to read it again, get your mind back on track, and continue moving forward. But there's a lot of things too that, your thoughts, the things you get distracted by, tell you about yourself, whether it's things that you're worried about, or things in your past, maybe your former glories, that kind of stuff that you're still reveling in, or things in the past that you wish would have gone a certain way. Um, those are things also to take into consideration, because whether it be like, again, something in your past, a trophy you won when you're in high school that you're continuing to glory over, could tell you that you're still sort of attached to these sorts of material things, these sorts of memories, or something that you're worried about, that you're not completely disposed to divine providence, and trusting him, and helping your family, or those sorts of things. So even our distractions, we can turn into prayer. Even our distractions, we can turn into prayer, because it's very often that we're just distracted just by, oh, I heard a song on the radio yesterday. Oh, I'm going to start singing it in my head. It's usually some sort of worry, or some sort of, well, born from some sort of vice that can tell us a little bit about ourselves, and actually help gear us towards maybe the virtues that we should be contemplating during our mental prayer.
Yeah, I like this question a lot, because it implies that she's trying, and that she's trying to become a saint, at least from this question. So that is really really good. And Father, what I've read also is that God is pleased when we turn our minds to Him, and so when we get distracted, and then we realize that we got distracted, and we turn our minds back to God, He even that pleases Him. You can't which here's the thing, Father, you can't get distracted during prayer if you're not praying in the first place. So I think it's fine to get distracted, and you catch yourself, and then, because then I suppose the other side of the coin, Father, would be to think that if you can just be sitting there or kneeling there in 30 minutes, purposefully getting distracted, and that is pleasing to God, which you are just wasting your time, basically. But if you get distracted and then realize it, and do your best to not be distracted, that in and of itself is pleasing to God.
Right.
Mark Becker says, young men are suffering in our culture. What do you think about this, Father?
Actually, I mean, I think you sent me a tweet one day, and that was pretty spot on. There was some sort of Protestant who was just encouraging young men, go out there, find a woman, get married, have babies, have more children than you can afford. Just very encouraging. But then some Catholic podcaster retweeted it. I can't even remember who it was. It wasn't one of the famous ones. It wasn't one of those that were platformed by Lila Rose, like Alex Horado or anybody like that. But he gave this whole long list of all the things young men have to basically filter this potential wife through these ideas, psychology, looking at all of her wounds, looking at her relationship with her parents, looking through this, a whole laundry list of things, whole grocery list of things that young men have to go and check out, like with a psychological microscope or some such thing. And Alberto, you were like, see, this is what paralyzes young men too. This is what paralyzes young men, that they have to be so incredibly worried about understanding the other person's psychology completely, and all of their wounds and all of their past and everything. Because what happens if like this person um, is wounded and needs to grow later in life? It's like, well, that's kind of the point. Marriage is supposed to help this. But you're right. It's like a lot of young men are completely, totally paralyzed based on all of the things the culture is even teaching them that they need to make as qualifiers. Red flags for just simple little things.
And even the culture, like the culture is so bad, Father, that the reaction is essentially equally as bad, because they are telling men, if you don't want to get married, or if you have any hesitation whatsoever about getting married, including that being that women are most women today are crazy, that there's something wrong with you. So it even goes to so many decisions, like being so paralyzed. There's this one guy that puts out a lot of content on business, and he basically says, he made a really an analogy that I think is very helpful in many levels. He says, so regarding soccer, Father, he says, does a player like Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi, who are considered the two of the best players ever, do they wait for the perfect conditions to make a great play? No, you have the game is scheduled and you have to perform. Basically, performing by itself creates the good conditions. So I know so many people, so many men that are like, oh, I can't get married until this is this or that, or because I'm not mature, or so on and so forth, which could definitely be true. But at the same time, it's not a reason to not work on that, and to make sure, be like, everything has to be perfect because this guy online says that if you're not waking up at 4 a.m. and working out, and then starting work at 6 a.m. and then doing this and this and that, then you're not a real man and not ready to get married. And similarly to, as I thought, like, it's very common in Hispanic culture. I don't know if it's the same thing in like white culture, but it's very common, Father, in Hispanic culture to say, get married and then know each other and then have children after that. And my response to that, when I talk to younger people that ask me, like, oh, what about, there was one time recently, my wife's birthday, we went to dinner, and the waiter, I forget how this came up, because we took our newborn, and she was so nice. She was asleep the whole time that we were at the restaurant. And this was a relatively fancy restaurant, so it was not very loud or anything like that. So, and the waiter, I don't know how this comes up, but the waiter tells me, "Oh, I'm going to get married. Is this your first one?" And I said, "No." We said, "No, it's our third." And he's like, "Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm going to get married to my girlfriend. We already live together. Blah blah blah." And he's like, "What would be one recommendation for that you guys would have for marriage?" And then I said, "Just have children as soon as possible." And he was like, "Oh, we kind of want to get to know each other, and maybe it's if it's up to her or whatever." He said something like that. It's her decision, if she wants to have kids because she carries them, or something gay like that. But I told people, so you wait to know each other, and then you get to know each other, and then she gets pregnant and everything changes, and then the baby's born and then everything changes again, and then she gets pregnant with the second one and then everything changes, and so on and so forth, I don't know at what point things just don't change, and then you get to midlife crisis, and then you go crazy or the wife goes crazy. So life just is consistently changing, which I think is one of the things that St. Peter of Alcantara, Father, says, that goes to show how little we should value this life, in the sense that it changes. Like, we get a cold and we get in a bad mood, and then tomorrow we don't get a good night's sleep and we wake up with a headache, and we want to value this life like more than eternity. That's what St. Peter says. Happy feast day of the presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Absolutely wonderful feast day. Rob says, It's hard for young men because men have been demonized and we live in a feminized society. Yes. I'm sure, Rob, that you also see this. But whenever your wife is like talking really well about you, people that are like worldlings, they flip out. They go like, "Oh, he's not that nice. He's not that great," or anything like that. Always happens. When if they're like, "Oh, let's make these plans," and then if your wife says, "Oh, yes, let me ask my husband if I can do that," it's not so. Not only are men demonized, but women who follow men whom you got married to, so presumably you would get married to, so that you could be under his authority. They also will get demonized. So men are demonized, and women who are not feminists are also probably more. I think more. Other. What do you think? I think that women that are not feminists are more demonized than men.
Yes. Yes. In the sense that, as Diane was bringing out earlier, it's hard to find good friends precisely because of this. Is because, yeah, if you have nothing bad to say about your husband, or even if you did, if you don't say it, then the girls aren't going to like you. And so of course you have these what do you call them, hen houses or whatever else that just exist to gossip and all sorts of things. So if they're not demonized in the sense of um, being rejected from society, nevertheless there's at least an exclusion that the groups of women will simply exclude them from their friends group because when they want to be able to talk bad about their husbands, right? And so they can only feel free to do that if all the other girls there are gonna talk bad about their husbands as well. So it's definitely, if they're not demonized, it's definitely difficult.
Or maybe they're only like Sunday only trats, and that's going to be a problem. So actually, as men and as the ones that are like out and about more than women are, one thing that you could do is you meet maybe a new nice trat or something like that, and then get to know their family a little bit, and then you can recommend friendships to your wife. That can also
Mhm.
be a thing that could work very well. Hey, you should be friends with. She seems very nice. She doesn't seem insane. Maybe she turns out to be crazy, but that there's only so much that you can do.
Right.
Amen. Yes. Happy feast of the presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary. All right, Father, here we go. Apple juice or whiskey?
Of course, it's Scotch. It's Friday night leisure.
I don't have anything. I'm not drinking anything.
Oh, I've also got my glass of water here too. So
That's funny. No, it's apple juice is kind of nasty. I don't even understand how that's real. What's not nasty is like apple cider is pretty
mhm.
okay. Pretty okay. When we used to be over in Western Father, there's a lot of apples there.
Oh
So
yeah,
that's kind of nice. In the fall, everybody would go crazy with the apples. It would be
apples and
everywhere.
pumpkin patches, apple orchard and pumpkin patches.
Yes, Mrs. Flatcat would go over to the orchard and then come back with like so many apples. And once I tasted freshly picked apple, I said the store bought stuff is fake. It's not even close. Mark Becker, thank you so much for joining us in the chat. And I want to remind everybody about the Procedamus 2026 Gala in Clearwater Beach, Florida. Buck Hall will be joining us as a keynote speaker. Father Calvin Robinson will be joining us as Buck Hall will be the master of ceremonies. Father Calvin Robinson will be the keynote speaker. Father Martin will be there. Bishop Miko will be there. If you're wondering, everything is so bad, the Vatican just put out a new article saying that Our Lady does not hold back the wrath of God. What do we do? And as we read in our last episode on this book, The Restoration of Christian Culture, the answer is the restoration of the monasteries, of the convents. And how do we do that? Well, the Procedamus Gala is in benefit of the old Roman Catholic See of Caer-Glow and of the Oblates of St. Augustine. So by attending the Procedamus Gala, you are going to meet like-minded Catholics. Yes, it's nice. You are going to also be meeting a lot of people that are involved in the fight and that are like-minded, like people in the chat. You can actually have the chat, but in person. So it will be very nice. What's the exact date, Father? February what? I'm so bad with dates.
21st.
There you
February
go.
21st.
February
Let me double check myself.
21st, 2026, Clearwater
Yes,
Beach, Florida.
it's
We
Saturday.
will have the chat, but in person. Yes, absolutely. Let's see. Snaggleton. Anyone here pray for my spouse Ellen, for her openness to pregnancy after a miscarriage before the biological clock runs out. 2 beautiful children so far. Thank you. Prayers. Absolutely. Diana Liz, some circles of trats are hard because if you aren't the perfect trat woman, you're out. And okay, here's the what blows my mind, Father. If you run into a circle of women that are like this, guaranteed, like you don't even have to meet them. So it's not a rash judgment because I'm not talking about specific people that I don't know. Guaranteed that they're fake trans, or that they think that just because they put on a skirt that makes them Catholic and holy, and that's a problem. And they hold rash judgments, and they hate their husbands, and they have 15 children, but their daughters are all going to be blue-haired feminists, and then their sons are going to just be weird, unmarriable, and without vocations. So if you run into a circle of people that are excluding you because you are not trad enough, now of course there does, like for example, like in between my group of trad friends, we do absolutely welcome new guys to come in, but we are going to still be talking about all the topics that we talk about. And guys come, okay, cool. Oh yeah, I didn't know this about the noble sword. I didn't know this or that, because a lot of people don't know all these things. So guaranteed, and I wonder what you think, Father, there's a circle of women that are like this. They think that they are holy just for putting a skirt or a dress on, but not because they are actually trying to follow the virtues.
Well, exactly. I mean, an essential part about our conversion, our interior conversion, is that our heart actually changes from a heart of stone to a heart of flesh. You know, we actually live, as we were reading in the Self-Abandonment to Divine Providence, our heart just constantly disposed with the same desires and the same, reacts to the movements of the Holy Ghost within us. But a lot of these supposed, trad women, or people, there's men too, that just live for the facade. They don't actually desire to change their hearts. They just want the list of rules. And I've preached about this too. I call it the trad Catholic mitzvot. The mitzvot in the Old Testament was the 613 Jewish laws that they all had to follow. And what was considered just was how many of those 613 laws you kept. And so we can tend to do this too with all the obscure, crazy rules from tradition, or decades ago or centuries ago, that we randomly find and say, "Oh, look, monks used to wear this silly haircut, all the way around. You're not a real monk unless you have that haircut." Well, how does that actually change your heart? How does that, what, so it's these sorts of things. So if people are concerned about outfits, oftentimes maybe they'll memorize definitions of virtues by either from watching podcasts like Father Ripperger or from manuals or stuff like that, and they can talk about them, they can remember them. But the thing is, I mean, unless you're actually putting them in practice, and not only that, but they're coming out of a love for God, then it's just you controlling your own behavior, so to speak. It's just like a social norm, a mere social norm, rather than something that emanates from the love of God. So of course we have natural acquired virtues and we have infused moral virtues. They have the same names, but they have completely different intentions. Like temperance in the natural or acquired virtue is simply, you want to control how much you eat so that you can lose weight. But the infused moral virtue of temperance is to actually subdue your flesh, subdue your passions, so that you can obey God's commandments, obey God's law, and you can live for Him. And so two completely different motives distinguish what one is for. So it's not just about behavior. It's not just about following rules. There's an actual real interior conversion that must take place where you actually want to behave out of your love for God. Like you sincerely are repulsed by the thought of offending God. That's where we want to get in our interior life. Is that we don't do bad things. We don't sin because oh no, I know that's a sin, so I'm just going to do the opposite. It's like, no, that offends somebody I love. That offends somebody I love, and so why would I do that?
Rob says 100% agreed by my wife. So looks like this is not really surprised, but looks like this is a problem in different places. And this is why it's important to attend the Procedamus Gala, because we will get there and then we'll be like, oh yeah, these people, these women, they're insane, they're feminists, but they wear skirts and they think they're trads. Oh, you too, and we will become even better friends. Good to know. It's not just me. Yes, no, you're not crazy, Diane. You actually are not. My wife has seen it firsthand. Linda, being divorced for 13 years before remarrying and being very independent, it's been very hard to just have my husband be in authority over our marriage. I've only just learned to be submissive. I've learned to work out the feminism in me. And of course, always having good friends is important to work out the feminism. And so you look out for those red flags, like talking bad about their husbands, maybe to
Mhm.
you, or even talking bad about their husband to the children, and then you start getting away from people like that. Mark Becker, good for you, Linda. Mark Becker says, I catching myself getting a hard heart at times. Humility cures it. What do you think about this, Father?
It's true. And one of my favorite things to uh, consider for a meditation on humility is always the Blessed Sacrament. I mean, our Lord wasn't just satisfied with taking on a human nature for our salvation, but wanted to give himself to us as food, taking on the appearance, the smell of mere bread. But not only that, but then to be received by so many unworthy souls, so many of those who are in mortal sin, who are communing sacrilegiously, all the desecrations. Also, that but a few people, a few sincere souls, a few souls in love with him, he can commune with in a very intimate way. So he's willing to put up with so much more sufferings, even so much more suffering, scandal, offense, sacrilege, for those few people who actually love him. And so, to me, that's a great example of humility to endure all those offenses for the good of so few.
What I think people, and judging on this comments from like Rob's wife, and Diane, and so on and so forth, what is can be shocking to some people, Father, and you really don't understand it well until you live through this, is that there are certain situations in life that God sends our way by divine providence to test
Hmm.
us, to try us, and to see what our response is. And so when you're friends with people, these things come up, and you may be discussing them, and so on and so forth. So you think that people are your friends until you start. We're trying to grow together in holiness, or so you think, and you start discussing your reaction to certain things, maybe a problem with your husband, and how you internalized it, and pray for humility, and blah, blah, whatever. What's shocking to a lot of people, Father, is when people that you thought were threats and that you thought that were your friends, based on what your responses are to different areas in life, they start getting very bitter at you. It's quite shocking, and this is not because of money or envy, or it's just literally because of what your response is to a trial, and then start to get attacked by people that you thought were your friends. It's something that
Hmm.
is, it's very bizarre, but it's a sort of persecution, not in the terms of what we believe, but in the terms of trying to practice and living out the virtues.
Hmm.
Let's see, any more questions. If we don't have any questions for now, let's see, there we go. Does Father have a dog?
Yes, I have a. He's half Chihuahua, half Dachshund, so he's technically called a Chiweenie. And there's a story. I mean, Diane, you're kind of new to Restless Heart Media, and probably the Oblates of St. Augustine as well. So there's a story here. So back in 2020, May 2020, Father John and I belonged to the Society of St. Augustine in the Archdiocese of Kansas City, Kansas. But then Archbishop Naumann didn't like that Father John was offering the traditional Latin Mass on the weekends in our monastery, in that I was going to his traditional Latin masses, and so he decided to basically suppress the community. And so that's when Father John and I decided to start the Oblates of St. Augustine down here with the old Romans, because Father John had known Archbishop Humphreys for like 20 years at that point. But while we were getting ready to transition from Kansas City, Kansas to St. Petersburg, Florida, there was a dog that was walking around our monastery for like 2 weeks. And we asked the groundkeeper one day, he's like, "Hey, have you seen this dog around? Like, I've seen him a couple days." Because the night before, like 10 p.m., I was getting ready to go to bed. I lived on the second floor. I heard a dog outside crying. And I opened my window and I see this little Chiweenie scratching at our back door, asking to get in. It was like 10 o'clock at night. I was, in my pajamas. I got into bed. So the next day, asked the groundskeeper about him. I said, "Yeah, he's been around here for like 2 weeks. all that kind of stuff. So Father John and I, we got some, old hamburger from the refrigerator upstairs and whispered him in. And so I took him to the vet. He had no tag on him. He had no chip. We looked lost and found, on the internet, all that kind of stuff, and nobody claiming that the dog has been lost. And so Father John looked at him, looked at me. It's like, well, then Brother Martin, you and I are rejects because we like to church Latin Mass. He seems to be a reject. Let's just all go be 3 rejects together. And so that's when we took in that we call him Brother Chewy.
Father, on the topic of dogs, thoughts on non-service dogs in the sanctuary during Holy Mass?
I personally had mixed feelings about it. Father John always put Chewy in a kennel because Chewy would when we leave him alone, he would defecate, and I think this has to do one of the reasons why he probably ran away. So to spare ourselves cleaning up a mess every time we went to Mass, that's what we do. But I mean, it's one thing about Napoleon, storing his horses in Santa Maria de Angeli or whatever that church is called in Rome, specifically to desecrate it. But at the same time, I don't know. It's a good question. I don't remember any particular saint or any writing, from a moral manual, anything that specifically forbids it. So, yeah.
Oh, I was going to click on one of the latest comments, and I accidentally opened up an Excel spreadsheet. That's pretty funny.
Chewy. My dog is Catholic.
Yeah,
No, and I even remember a picture. I think there were maybe oratorians in England or Wales or something like that. They had the little Shih Tzu or something in the sanctuary, just free roaming around. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't really know if there's anything that strictly forbids it.
Yeah, I can think of a few. Like, okay, Chewy is too small. Like, there's no way that he could freak out and then jump on top of the altar, and he would be on his little kennel and like locked up anyway. I can definitely see if maybe they like urinate somewhere that during Mass, that maybe, especially if it's a big dog, that would be problematic.
And too, I mean, I know a lot of monasteries, a lot of convents of nuns who have like 4 or 5 dogs, mostly to help with the animals, chickens and sheep and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I've seen pictures of them, in the chapel as well, because they're just. Otherwise, sometimes too, you have to like lock them up and then hear them bark all the time while you go to pray. So there's also that. And you could put their bed out in the corner, and they could just sit in their bed while you go pray.
I knew a priest whose dog would not eat until after the blessing of his food. That's funny.
That's funny.
St. Francis, Mark Becker says, St. Francis had a wolf. You have a Chiweenie.
I always ask God for a Rottweiler, and this is what he gave me. So
he's very defensive. He's very defensive of the Oblates. He's a guard dog of the Oblates of St. Augustine. So we got a couple more minutes left. See if any additional comments come in. But it looks like tonight the topic was a very important one, feminism, and very true that it just hides in so many. Usually, whenever like you can usually just look at at a man and be like, yeah, that he looks pretty gay. The problem is when women are really good at putting on their Halloween costumes and appearing to be trad. Because here's the thing. Usually, like, even women that are not trads like dresses, or they can wear skirts. You can look at somebody that is not a trad whatsoever and not wearing the skirt for modesty, but just wearing it because she likes to wear a skirt and the style or whatever. So that's why that could be one of the reasons why women are so good at hiding in plain sight, being crazy feminists.
The other thing regarding humility, real quick, is also compunction of heart. When you remember your past, remember before you had your honest conversion, all the sins you committed, all that kind of stuff, you truly are slow to condemn other people who are not yet aware of what is offensive to God. You're a lot slower to do those sorts of things. So people that are very quick to judge others, they don't remember their sins.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for all your comments. We look forward to seeing you all Tuesday as we continue John Senior's The Restoration of Christian Culture. As soon as we end this, go to procedamus.com and acquire your tickets to the Procedamus 2026 Gala. Buck Hall will be the master of ceremonies. Father Kevin Robinson will be the keynote speaker. We will all be there, and it's just going to be so much fun, all in benefit of the old Roman Catholic See of Caer-Glow and the Oblates of St. Augustine. Father, anything else before we go?
See you guys on Tuesday. Why Procedamus? I remember the day after my ordination, the morning of my first Mass, vesting in the sacristy, putting on the amice, putting on the alb, the cincture, the maniple, the stole, the vestments. I remember the 10 years that I had been preparing for this moment. Aside from the emotions and the nerves, I was aware of what offering the holy sacrifice of the Mass means for myself and for all the faithful. But additionally, given the context of the current persecution of the traditional Catholic faith in the world and in the church, I grabbed my chalice, I grabbed my biretta, looked at the crucifix, bowed, and said, Procedamus in pacem, to which the altar servers replied, In nomine Christi, Amen. I put on my biretta, and we processed out to the altar to offer the holy sacrifice of the Mass, the traditional Latin Mass, the Mass of the ages. Ascending the steps of the altar, I felt only gratitude to our Lord for having allowed me to be an instrument in preserving that which is true, good, and beautiful for future generations, for the ages to come. As long as I'm physically able, this Mass will continue to be offered. This spirit of determination, this spirit of perseverance, is that to which I would love to invite all of you to share. The first annual Procedamus Gala is organized to support the mission of the Oblates of St. Augustine and the old Roman Catholic See of Caer-Glow to preserve the traditional Latin Mass and the traditional Catholic faith for future generations. Procedamus.